we got another one of them. Popping at the mouth or the side of his neck when he pouts, no argument, no rebuttal from. He ain't from my town, I don't know him, so I'm guessing he's...
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. So I've been talking a lot on this channel about baby faces and heels. I used to talk about it a lot more than I do recently. I felt like I was beating a dead horse. But it has become a huge problem. It's come to the point where I'm starting to see it pop up in other places, not just in the comment section to my videos, but also in other spots that I've seen. I've seen it on PW Insider, but I found an article on Slam Wrestling that now talks about the babyface problem, specifically in the WWE. Now, I'm going to read a piece of this article, not read the whole thing, because I think it's very important. But babyfaces and heels are fundamental pieces of storytelling, and you can't tell an appropriate story without it. And in wrestling, like all of wrestling currently, I can only really think of one really pure babyface, and that is Jungle Boy. He's the only one. Everyone else is either a whiner, a crybaby, a cheater, or something like that. All right, so. But there's some nuance. But I'll talk about the nuance after I talk about this article. Now, the article itself is written in context of Kofi Kingston and MVP. The segment from 2 weeks ago on Raw, MVP approaches Kofi Kingston, and Kofi gives him this lecture about standing up for his family and his kids and stuff like that. And the article is saying that how can Kofi say these things while his character cheats and stuff like that, which is a good point. It's a good question. But here is, I think, a very important part of the article. He says, you would think wrestlers who have young children especially, and present their personas as heroes to those kids who will refuse or argue against some of the angles which are proposed to them. It seems some have forgotten that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Being a hero isn't supposed to be easy. Unlike villains who don't follow rules, don't have any moral guidelines, and can literally do anything they want because they have no conscience, heroes are bound by their morals and have to constantly make tough or often impossible choices. Now we are in a period of pro wrestling where the differences between the heroes and the villains have become blurred, or in many cases erased entirely. It is a period where often faces revel in cheap, tainted victories, where unprovoked faces resort to using illegal weapons, where faces sink to the level of the villains instead of rising above them and making weak excuses or blaming others for their lapses in judgment. This is I think, it's a bullseye. It's a pretty good piece. Well, that's a pretty good piece of business right there. Now, to complement this, there was I don't know if you guys know who Max Landis is. He's a screenwriter, but he made this video that the When Wrestling Isn't Wrestling video, which was very popular about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. He was actually I think he was a consultant or a writer for WWE. I don't remember how long ago that was, but he talked a lot about why he doesn't like Spider-Man. He also used to write Superman for DC Comics for a short spell. And he talked about why he doesn't like Spider-Man in one video. And in this video, he says that he doesn't like Spider-Man because he feels like Spider-Man is a bully. That through Spider-Man's superhuman intelligence and his superhuman wit and his superhuman agility, he actually makes his enemies feel bad and makes them worse. Because one of Spider-Man's gimmicks, and this is something that everybody knows if you know just a little bit about Spider-Man, is that Spider-Man likes to trash talk. That sometimes he calls his opponents names while he's dodging their attacks. He's trash talking them. And in some ways, he's making the situation worse because he's making the person more upset. He's not just trying to stop the crime. He's also humiliating them. Now, there's people who love Spider-Man who will say, like, oh, come on. He calls the Rhino a big idiot or something like that. It's not a big deal. The Rhino's trying to rob a bank. And it's like, well, yeah, you can stop the bank robbery without him trying to abuse the Rhino, sure, but I think what because Max Landis loves Superman, and Superman is like super pure of heart. He's uplifting. He even wants to uplift the villains. That's next level. That's aspirational hero stuff. Spider-Man is a admittedly flawed character. He's more human than Superman. We can say it from that perspective that Spider-Man is sort of a roguish character in that point. Now, he's not a thief. Spider-Man is not a thief. He does lie because he has to lie to keep his secret identity secret. So that means every hero who has a secret identity is a liar, including Superman. You're right. So that's just one way of looking at it. But he's not malicious. Let's put it like that. Right. And I think here in this article, he's talking about babyfaces cutting corners. But you can cut corners without being malicious. I'll give you a good example, and I'll continue along the same lines of the people that he's using. New Day. For instance, New Day is always pushed as being sort of fun-loving, over-the-top, silly, harmless. Right? That's the character of New Day. They're kind of harmless. But they're all three very, Kofi and Woods are all three of them are really highly intelligent, like real dudes. But the character of Kofi Kingston is very much like Spider-Man. He's very flashy. He's very fast. He's a trash talker. He'll cut corners if he has to, but he's not malicious. He's not going to go out and willingly hurt or harm somebody else without provocation, right? But in a match, if he's overwhelmed, he will cut corners, right? Now, the favorite of the New Day is the trombone, right? They'll go out there and the enemy will be like, what? Trombone, random trombone, and get distracted. Now, you can argue, like, if you get distracted by a trombone, you know that they got it. For starters, didn't you watch Raw last week? They had trombone then, too. If you get distracted by the trombone, that's your fault, right? That kind of thing. Like when Eddie hit the mat with the chair and then tossed the chair. If you catch the chair and get caught with it, that's your fault. I didn't hit you with the chair. I only set up the situation for you to fall into this hole. It's almost like Bugs Bunny. That's what we call a trickster, right? It's somebody who uses their superior intelligence to manipulate. And you can do that in ways that are malicious, or you could do that in ways that are virtually harmless, where you just open up a little space for yourself to squeeze through. Bret Hart used to do this all the time. He used to play possum, fake knee injuries and stuff like that in order to get his opponent to ease up. And then he'll, grab an ankle or take him down or something like that. My favorite is what he did to Diesel at Survivor Series 95, where he pretended to be dead from the jackknife power bombs, and Diesel kept trying to lift him, and he kept dead weighting him. And then eventually he just kind of pops up and puts him in a small package and pins him. Like, some people could be like, oh, that was so underhanded of Bret. He pretended to be more hurt than he really was. It's like, he outsmarted him, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a little dirty. It's not, standing up for what's right. It's not, the big Hulk Hogan comeback, but, there's nothing wrong with some tricks. Bugs Bunny is always the hero in the cartoons, and he's, cross-dressing and doing all kinds of weird stuff to take his opponents off base, because usually they're armed and he isn't. That's usually one of the things with Bugs Bunny. Because Looney Tunes, if you are deep into that, Looney Tunes has a list of rules. And, one of the rules is Bugs Bunny can never be armed. Or at least I believe that was one of the rules. I know another one of those rules is Wile E. Coyote can never actually catch the Roadrunner. Because, what story do you tell with the Roadrunner actually captured? But if you look at the history of, and maybe I'm just thinking of just a pattern, but in this pattern of these cartoons, as far as Looney Tunes are concerned, he's almost always being hunted by Elmer Fudd or Yosemite Sam or Marvin the Martian or whoever. They almost always have a gun or a knife or something. And Bugs Bunny has no weapon. His weapon is his mind. So he will outthink his enemies, right? And sometimes in doing that, he has to lie or manipulate them. Similarly, in certain situations, Kofi Kingston is usually smaller than his opponent, right? So he's smaller, not as strong, his greatest weapon is going to be his intelligence. So he might have to cut some corners in terms of being a little bit smarter. Eddie Guerrero was like that. Bret Hart was like that. You have those kinds of characters where you can do that. One of my favorites is in Lupin the Third from the anime series. Lupin is a thief. They tell you right up front. He should be the bad guy. He's a thief. But Lupin is not malicious. He's not out to hurt anybody. He carries a gun because he needs to protect himself. Because sometimes he's stealing from people who are bad guys. Sometimes people are shooting at him. Most of the time he's dealing with other types of bad guys. But he doesn't go around shooting people. He steals in almost a cat burglar-like way, where he uses his superior intelligence to swipe diamonds or treasure chests or whatever. And he does so while making you laugh and being entertained. He's entertaining in that way. He's still the good guy in that story, even though he's a thief. Now, there are still police officers who want to catch him, and they're a little bit, they're being outwitted, which creates the Looney Tunes type of scenario that I've been talking about here. So you can have more than one kind of babyface. You can have the smarter, what we call the trickster or the magician style babyface, where you can pull the wool over somebody's eyes, lead them to believe something is not what it really is, pretending to be injured when you're not, pretending to be a little bit more tired than you really are, that kind of thing. It's not necessarily an evil aspect, because not everybody is 100% true all the time. Not everybody's 100% honest all the time. You could be a little bit more humorous. So while I agree with the article overall that there is a huge babyface problem in wrestling, as far as, folks, that kids can look up to, I agree with that. But even some of the purest babyfaces ever, even Rey Mysterio, will cut a corner here and there. He's won matches by, spitting green mist in people's faces, doing that kind of stuff. I remember him spitting in somebody's face. I forget who it was. I think it was Chris Jericho, I think it was. You do things that outsmart your opponents if you're not as advantaged, like you're not big, as strong and fast as your opponent, you might be able to outwit them. And that's an important piece too. And that's something that I think is actually good about, the sort of magician style babyface, the sort of, that sort of character. And we do need more of those, but I do believe that there is a babyface problem overall. That's a completely different video, however, because then we got to talk about why, almost all the babyfaces are getting beat to death, or they're all corny as hell, or they're all crybabies, or they're all weak as shit. This is just something, and one day I will end up doing the archetype video where I actually sit down and explain this stuff a little bit more detail. But you can be Kofi Kingston and still be a babyface, because everybody knows that Kofi is, he's a magician, he's there 1 minute, the next minute he's not. 1 minute he's cheating, and but you can't divorce those things from their context, because usually if he does cheat, he's cheating against somebody who's bigger, stronger, faster than he is, or he's cheating against somebody who has almost all these types of advantages over him. And so this is his only method of evening the odds, is to have Woods play the trombone outside the ring. And if that gets your attention, that's your fault. Just like if you catch the chair when Eddie smashes the chair into the mat and then tosses it to you, if you catch the chair, that's on you. You shouldn't have caught the chair, right? So we can look at the world in a very black and white ways, and I believe in that. But I still understand that you can have the white way of looking at things, but there still be nuance there. Because when you look at the yin yang and the symbol of the yin and the yang, the black side with the white dot, the white side with the black dot, that shows you that the yin and the yang is masculine and feminine, right? But it tells you that even masculine have that little spot of femininity, and even femininity has that dot of masculinity. It's the same thing when you talk about people who are good. Good people still have bad habits. bad people still have good habits. You know, that doesn't mean that they're gray. You know, gray is like, you know, wishy-washy crap. You can be a good dude with bad habits, you know, and most people will try to accept your bad habits. And then some people, you can be a bad guy with good habits, and people will sometimes harp on your good habits. But it all depends on the story that you're telling. Within the storyline of what Kofi Kingston did to Lashley, for instance, he didn't ask Drew McIntyre to interfere. Drew McIntyre interfered on his own. You know, he didn't ask Xavier Woods to blow the trombone. He does it on his own. They're kind of working in concert as being, you know, you never really see Kofi tell Woods to blow the trombone. You know, Woods blows the trombone on his own when he feels like Kofi's in trouble. And then it's up to Kofi to take advantage of that. You know, that's a completely different scenario. But I wouldn't use Kofi as being a guy that's not really a good example of a babyface to kids. Because Kofi's no different than Bugs Bunny. You know, no different than Lupin III. No different than Eddie Guerrero. And it's all going to be about, I know people are going to say, well, don't compare them. I'm not comparing them. I'm just telling you they're under the same umbrella. Okay? I'm just telling you that when it comes to the character archetype, they're under the same umbrella. And I'll explain more of that when I do the magician archetype, probably in a couple of weeks. All right, so like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.